Queensland health workers are trying to determine the full implications of a snap decision to pause the use of hormone therapy treatment for children with gender dysphoria. Around 600 children are already undergoing the therapy, often involving the use of drugs that prevent the onset of puberty, which will be allowed to continue. Everyone else, new patients, will have to wait until the program is reviewed. It will be the second review in 6 months. The Queensland Government says concerns over treatment at the Cairns Sexual Health Service led to the pause. Tim Nicholls is the Queensland Health Minister and joins me now. Tim Nicholls, welcome back to Radio National Breakfast.
Good morning, Sally. Thank you.
Tell me about these concerns about the health service in Cairns. What happened?
Well, look, a whistleblower has made disclosures in relation to what is apparently the unauthorised delivery of treatment services, particularly hormone therapy treatment services, to a minor up in Cairns. And that's led to an investigation where we've found that looks like 42 instances of unauthorised treatment, and of that, 17 of those children have been put on puberty blockers or on gender-affirming hormone therapy. This has been done in an unauthorised way outside of the scope of practice for the Cairns Sexual Health Service. And as a result of that, we've had to make a number of difficult decisions in recent times. And on Tuesday, I announced the commencement of a number of investigations into both the clinical care pathways, that's what's in Queensland called a Part 6 investigation, into the clinical care of those children, and also a health system inquiry into how it was allowed to happen in Queensland and how that was allowed to occur. So they've led to those concerns.
Minister, when you're talking about the unauthorised use, one of the allegations that's been reported is that there wasn't parental consent. Is that the case? Is that the heart of this issue?
One of the issues is around the documentation of consent. So there are guidelines in relation to how this is all to be done, Australian guidelines, and it appears that there was non-compliance with those guidelines. So determining consent has been one of the difficulties that we've faced. And obviously, with children, particularly children under the age of 14, it's been particularly difficult to ascertain whether there's been parental consent being provided for the service that's been apparently provided up there without authorisation. So it's a very significant concern in relation to consent.
And what's the government's thinking here? If you don't have evidence of these issues happening in other areas, what's the thinking behind having a statewide suspension?
Well, what we're doing is conducting, as I said, this health system review, which will also guide how we act across the state. It will inform us of other actions that might need to be taken, bearing in mind there are 16 health and hospital services throughout Queensland. So this Cairns and Hinterland review will enable us to do that. We've also seen criticisms of both the Queensland Children's Gender Service more broadly and the evaluation that you mentioned in your intro that took place last year, and also the increasing contested evidence in the sphere of children's gender dysphoria treatments and the safety of hormone therapy for those under 18. So that's informed the government in its decision to undertake a review, and that review will look at the evidence base for stage 1 and stage 2 hormone therapy, that is puberty blockers and gender-affirming therapies for children under the age of 18.
This is Radio National Breakfast and you're listening to Tim Nicholls, who's the Health Minister in Queensland. Minister, yesterday we were speaking to a doctor about this issue, a doctor who's dealing in this area all the time, and was saying that the practices that are happening in Queensland are evidence-based and these medications which concerns have been raised about are reversible. What do you think about that view?
That is one view. This is a highly contested area, as anyone who has been following the public debate for some time now knows. And that's why we believe it's important to have an independently led external review of the evidence base for Queensland, because this is highly contested. There are specialists on both sides of the debate in relation to the effectiveness of the use of puberty blockers and other hormone therapies. So there is a highly contested field, both scientifically. We've seen in places like Finland, Denmark, Norway, France and Sweden, as well as the UK, that there have been very significant changes in the way that this therapy is used, including a very substantial tightening and restrictions on the use of this therapy. We believe that it's important that when we are talking about children, the state, all of us owe a very high duty of care to make sure that the evidence is soundly based and that we act with caution in that area. And that's why we're doing that. We will have a wide-ranging review, and we will be asking for submissions from specialists in the field as well as families with lived experience to make their submissions to that inquiry.
Minister, often kids who are dealing with gender dysphoria, there might be some other mental health issues that are happening there at the same time, and we know there are often concerns about the risk of suicide for kids who are in this situation. Can you guarantee that kids in this position will be safe during this suspension? It's a big deal for kids to step forward and talk about this stuff, and for the next little while, this kind of initial treatment won't be available to them if they're new patients.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yes, we do understand the risk of comorbidities and children presenting with multiple issues when they turn up. And that's why we're very much able to say that the services, psychiatric, psychological, social wellbeing and other medical interventions will continue to be made available through the Queensland Children's Gender Service. And we encourage children and their families in those circumstances to present there if they feel that they need that assistance with dealing with their incidences of gender questioning and gender dysphoria. So those services will remain. It will only be the prescription of the stage 1 and stage 2 hormone therapies that will stop or be paused while we undertake this review and come to a decision after we've received the results of that review. But very much we want to make sure that those children who are presenting with those comorbidities are cared for and considered, and the service will continue to provide those services, Sally.
Tim Nichols, thank you very much.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.